Hey guys, welcome to People I Think Are Cool. I'm your host, Liz Reed, one part of the art duo Cuddles and Rage, and this is my podcast where I interview cool, interesting, creative people. Today on the show, we have Chogrin. He's back. The last time I talked to him was 2018, holy cow, and that was episode 108. So I will have a link in the show notes if you kind of want to go back and listen to that episode to complement this one, because a lot of the things that we talked about back in 2018 are happening right now for him. It was like this little kind of path that you could see him planting the seeds. And now, years later, all this stuff is coming together, which is a really neat story about how long it takes for things to actually happen. And when you persevere, where you can go with your art, where you can take that dream. If you don't know Chogrin's work, he is a writer, artist, animator. When I talked to him previously, his book, Kid Del Toror, had just come out with, I believe, Gallery Nucleus. He says on the podcast, I'm pretty sure that's it. And now that same book is in Target stores. So we talk about going from like that self-publishing with Kid Del Toro to being traditionally published to the masses and having his book in the store. Also, he just partnered up with Kevin Smith and is creating toys and merch with him. And he also talks about some other projects that he's doing with Kevin. This is a great interview for those who are wanting to learn more about how to be your own cheerleader, how to make things happen for you. Because that's when I think of Chogrin, I really think of somebody who creates his own path, and pretty much every dream that he's ever had, he's been able to make come true. And I think what's great about him is he recognizes that it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time and love and connection. So I really enjoyed revisiting a lot of the things that we talked about back in 2018 to see where he's at now. And Chogrin is just a really fun guy and so creative. So without further ado, enjoy this awesome chat with Chogrin. So welcome back, Chogrin. I can't believe our last chat was in 2018.
Yeah,
that was crazy. I feel like you've done so much since then, and I can't wait to go through every little thing.
Because I'm alive.
Oh, yes. We should all be thankful that we're alive and well and able to chat.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you so much for having me again, Liz. It's always a pleasure. I had such a blast last time, and I just wanted to, I kind of reached out to you. I was like, we should do a follow-up just to, in general, like talk about, just to catch up. So
yeah. And I'm so glad that you did, because you really have done so much since our last chat. And I'm going to have a link in the show notes so that people can go back and hear it, because I really do think that in that conversation, you plant so many seeds, and people it's a good example of how long it takes for things to actually come to fruition and the perseverance behind it.
Totally.
So in a way, I'd love to start with the Kid Del Toro book, because looking back, I just realized it started off as something that you could get in a gallery, and now it's being sold in Target. Yes. Yep. So can you walk through that process, like how it went from kind of in a way self-published or co-published with the gallery to now being in stores?
Yeah, it's kind of hilarious, because I could think when we talked, it was 2018. That was the year that we put together that book for that art gallery. And, not to, not give credit to the gallery or anything like that, but the gallery had nothing to do with the book. That was totally like a thing that I kind of was like, oh, I would love to do this as a project. But because I'm always doing like a million things, I was like, I think I'm going to collaborate with a good friend of mine who's an amazing illustrator to do the illustrations, and I'll write it. And that was my friend Pakoto. And I was just like, hey, we got 4 weeks before the show. Do you want to do a Guillermo del Toro children's book? and of course, he's always like, that's what I love about Pakoto. He's always just like ready to throw down. Like, he's like, let's do it. And we kind of put together this loving tribute to one of Guillermo's stories about when he was a kid and how he became friends with monsters. And it's a little bit different. But what's cool is I can officially say is that people that got a copy of that book from the gallery, Pakoto and I now call that the uncut version. And this is like, you know, the family friendlier version. Cause I mean, that version was also family friendly, but you know, when you get into publishing and things like that, you gotta, you know, change. I don't want to say clean things up. You gotta just like change things up a little bit, you know, like, and you gotta take other things into consideration. So, but I'm actually proud of both, but I'm really proud. We definitely consider this like the definite like edition, because looking back at even the original one that we did for the gallery, there was like some wording stuff that I was just like, ooh, yeah, I could have written that better. You know, so we had 4 weeks. It was kind of like a, you know, I don't want to say rushed, but it was definitely like, here it is, you know? And, but it was still something we were really proud of. We put it out we did, I think I did a total of 20 or 30 copies. So it was a very limited batch. I used a company here that I get all my prints done in Burbank called Color Imagers. They're great. And they kind of like, you know, also just kind of put it together for me like overnight. And the gallery sold it. So it was a Gallery Nucleus exclusive. And yeah, and then after that, it kind of, you know, the 2018, when I went about my year doing other things, galleries and stuff like that. But then I thought, I'm like, this would be really, I was so proud of this project that I was like, you know, what would be really cool is like, one of my dreams was always when I graduated from school, when I was like going to school, was to do children's books, but I knew that I always wanted to do children's books that would be bilingual. So I, you know, just by looking online and I think going through the bookstore, I saw this company called Little Libros, and I saw that they specifically focused on bilingual children's books. So the light bulb went off, and I just immediately, you know, going through the internet, finding the contacts of who owned the company and stuff like that. I said, like, hey, like I did this with my friend Pakoto, like, would you guys be interested like in publishing it? Because they had published like other famous Latino artists like Frida and, you know, the kind of the greatest hits. So I thought it was like Guillermo's a no brainer. I'm like, this is done. I'm like, I thought it was just like, hey, here you go. Here's all the artwork. Make it happen. And then conversations started in 2018, and then 2019 is kind of like when we started talking about like maybe some editing and changing some things. And then I think, you know, in 2020 is when I think contracts were drafted and all that stuff. And 2020 was when we really kind of, Pakoto and I like really kind of like, you know, rolled up our sleeves and, you know, like I had this wonderful editor, Conchetta, at Little Libros that kind of sort of helped me like make me sound the best version of myself, both in English and Spanish. And then, you know, I kind of like art directed a lot of stuff that since I knew we had the opportunity to we were able to use some pages from the original. So some of the original pages are here, but because of the format of the book, for example, I can illustrate like, the original book was a page by page, was a kind of like, sort of like one page, another page. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So for this edition, we decided to just like, I'm trying to find a good example. For this one, we decided to do like, full spreads. So a lot of the artwork could be reused, but we had to like basically change it to a template. Like for example, this is the main page. So this is like a full spread. And since I have this open, my Pakoto was nice enough to put a little Easter egg of my Kid Del Toror toy. Yeah. Perfect. So, which, I guess I can show now. This is actually the first time I've done this in an interview, so it's kind of cool. So there he is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So cross promoting.
Of course, that's the Chogrin way.
Yeah. So yeah, I think even in my bio and you know, in the back, we both Pakoto and I drew ourselves.
Perfect.
Which is great because I kind of look like that right now with my hat.
Yes, you do. you know your style.
Yeah. And actually, this is pretty cool. Like Pakoto actually did this for a Guillermo del Toro show that we did back in 2015, In Service of Monsters 1 at Gallery 1988. So this is a piece that he did. I believe Guillermo bought it, but we used this as his Guillermo's photo. I thought it was fitting since Pakoda did all the artwork for the book. But yeah, even in my bio, I mentioned like, and working on vinyl toys like Kid Del Toro now available.
Well,
So
does GDT know this book exists now, or did he have to get any approval?
Yeah. That was like, I kind of let like with the toy and the book, like for example, like when we made Kid Del Toro, Guillermo has the original one from so quick story on this I did as a project, just as a art tribute and as an art piece for the In Service of Monsters art show in 2015, which Guillermo actually came to. So he kind of sort of walked around the gallery before we opened it up to the public, and he kind of was like, was able to cherry pick what he wanted to take home. And what's cool about that is something that I'm super proud of is a lot of those pieces that he bought at that show then ended up being in that LACMA exhibit that was I think went around. So that was really cool to then go from my gallery to an official like museum exhibit, like I'm like, oh, holy shit, that's I curated that shit. So so that was really cool. So he bought the original one, was made out of resin, and it was like, it's basically looked the same, but it was a little smaller. And I know Guillermo has it in his Ray Harryhausen collection. So if you ever go to Bleak House, it's in like that little that's where its home is. But then I started doing designer conventions like Designer Con, and I had already started doing a lot of like 3D pieces like of my stuff. And I kind of like, once how it is, like once you do something and then you get hooked on it, you're like more. As artists, we're constantly challenging ourselves. So, I look at it as my children, my toy children. What's really cool about this, then I kind of, since it was kind of sort of like Kid Del Toror, this was already done. Like the file was ready to go. That's a beautiful thing about sculpting in 3D and ZBrush. You just kind of like, you can take this and print and, there it is. I pitched it to a company that was just starting up at the time called Unruly Industries, which is like a division of Sideshow Collectibles. I just kind of sort of like on a whim, just said, hey, are you guys interested? And I also had the benefit, and this goes back to doing art shows. I will, there were times where I was burned out on the art shows, but I will always look fondly on the art shows because anything that I did, like these things there can always pinpoint it to an art show or a connection to somebody. So from the art shows and from the working in the industry, I had met actually a guy a friend of mine, now a really good friend. His name is David Igo, and he used to work for Sideshow. So through him, I kind of sort of was able to kind of get like the direct contact of the people at Unruly. And through that, like I was able to, because Guillermo's a big fan of Sideshow, and they've done, I think, like all the statues for Hellboy, Pacific Rim for him. So it was kind of like a no brainer, and it was kind of like an automatic, like, but I still like on Twitter, I kind of just messaged Guillermo, hey, like I said, is it cool if we like do a limited run of this? And, like he basically gave me his blessing. He's like, in Spanish, he basically said like, fine. He's like, fine by me. So, but I think, they were still like, they had to like probably talk to lawyers and all that stuff, but, Sideshow made it happen. And basically the same thing happened with this. Guillermo knew of it. Guillermo, like, I loved it. Like he actually, one of the things that one of my adventures last year when this first came out was Guillermo has been so busy, like, so I hadn't kept in touch with him since the toy, but then this came out, and I know he's a big fan and supporter of Dark Delicacies. It's a horror bookstore. It's a bookstore that focuses on horror, the horror genre in Burbank. And anybody, I can't recommend it enough. They have so much cool stuff. They have like anything, like if you're a fan of like any of that stuff, or even like, like things like Gremlins and stuff like that, they have stuff signed by Joe Dante, all your horror heroes, like all that stuff is there. So I kind of just like tweeted at Guillermo. I was like, hey, I know you're busy. Would you mind signing a few copies for a signing I'm doing at Dark Delicacies? So he said yes, and the yes went from like, okay, like, when, and I was just basically like the whole week I was just like, oh my God, like the signing's happening this Saturday. And I think it was Wednesday. And then he literally texted me like randomly in the middle of the day, this place, this time, blah, blah, blah. So like, I was like, but what was crazy is that not only did it was like two things that one day. It was like, I had to then go get the books from Dark Delicacies, go drive all the way across to LA. And then the same day I had to do a signing for Little Libros. I had to sign like inside the book that they were going to be doing a giveaway. And it was like 100 books or something like that. So I had to go drop off the books to Guillermo for him to sign them. And then I had to go run across town to do the signing for Little Libros. And then thankfully it all worked like clockwork, because when Guillermo was done signing, they texted me, he's like, done. And I had just finished signing like the 100 books for Little Libros. And then like I ran back and like, just like, picked it up from Guillermo. And then literally the next day was the signing. And I was like, oh my God, we made it. So wow. Yeah, sorry if I'm going super fast. Like,
no,
it's just like,
I'm just curious, like, did you know working with him that you just had to be on the ready, like within a few hours?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I mean, I knew the man, if I'm busy, that man is like, times 10, times 100, so like, I wanted to respect and whatever, whatever his schedule was, I'm like, I'll move heaven and earth just to like, make that happen. So the bookstore, they were very pleased. They were very happy. Because that's actually where I met Guillermo. One of the first times that I met him in person was at Dark Delicacies. There was a signing, oh my God, all the way back. Now I can officially say more than 10 years ago in 2011. Oh, yeah, I know. 2011 he had just come out with his vampire books, The Strain. Mm-hmm. So I met him there for the first time. He signed a Hellboy print that I had done. And, but my love affair with Guillermo goes all the way back to 2002 when I watched Blade 2 in the theaters. And that's officially 20 years old, which is crazy.
Yes, so yes. I know, like, it's always scary when like your favorite thing has like its 25th or 30th anniversary and you're like, okay.
Okay. What's really effed up and it's going to make me feel really old next year? It's the 30th anniversary of Jurassic Park.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, I'm not ready.
No, but everybody still looks good. So
yeah, that's right. We look good. Yeah. Yeah. So yes. I think I'm always going to be 25 at heart. So
exactly.
And speaking of 25 at heart, just like, I don't want to deviate from Guillermo, but another one of my heroes that I've been working with recently is Kevin Smith. And I think he's in 51, 52, but he acts like, I sometimes think, I'm like, man, he has like some great energy. He just acts like he's like 25. And speaking of the gurus, I just did a guru of Kevin.
Yes, I wanted to transition to that. So how did that come about? Was it? I'll just let you explain it, because it just seems like everything that you set up for yourself leads to something new. And the Kevin Smith thing is amazing.
No, thank you. Not like, and it's one of those things where like, I had already done a project. I've always been a Kevin Smith fan. I mean, I didn't even like do this on purpose. Like, this was my pajama shirt from last night. So no, Kevin. Okay. So growing up in Ecuador, I was very much into like, in the 90s, I think who wasn't, like, especially you were a kid at the time, Nirvana, skating, like the grunge, all that stuff. So Kevin kind of fell into that stuff. Like I still was living in Ecuador, and I think it was like I caught Mallrats on Cinemax, and I think it was like in 96. So for me, it was that perfect time when I was like, you're like a kid, but you're like transitioning to like, a teenager. So it was kind of like the perfect movie. And I was also into comics. So it was like this weird movie that I was like, oh, it's this movie that like understands like who I am. Like, and it was the first movie I had seen that like addressed nerd culture and comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like people can't remember a time before that where, it's almost like he had the balls to come out and celebrate
Yeah.
nerd culture
Yeah.
whenever you're coming out and everybody's just like action stars trashing it. And so
Yeah.
he was really gutsy.
Yeah, no, he was. And like now, like you look at that movie and they're like, everybody's like, oh, it's so passe. Like, oh, it's like, but at the time, like, I still think like, whatever he does, he will always have like that stamp of that time period and he was a big part of it. He was like for lack of better words, the voice of a generation. So for me, like my favorite directors have always been people like Kevin and Guillermo. It's funny. I just did a podcast with Kevin and Kevin said to me that for a long time, they would always say like, hey, you know who the Mexican you is? And they would always have that comparison. So I thought it was kind of funny, like, oh, that makes sense. They're kind of, now I know why I love them both. It's because they both stick to their guns. They both and for lack of better words, they both get high off their own supply, like Kevin in more ways than others. But yeah, and Kevin, if anything, it's like so cool because he's really built his own cinematic universe before, there was the Marvel cinematic universe. But in a way, I know he got that from reading Marvel comics and comics in general, where like all the characters were interconnected, but he decided to do that with his own little like New Jersey posse, so.
Yeah. And he defined the humor with his mute character, which I feel like everybody emulates now. Almost every new show has like a mute character where they try and use for like the comedic effect. And it's like, I mean, maybe I'm sure somebody did it before him too, but I feel like he's the original that, we all think.
Oh, yeah. I think he did the 90s version of Laurel and Hardy, like as even Penn, what is it called? Penn and Teller.
Penn and Teller.
Yeah. So, but you're right. He kind of sort of like did it like sort of like in that generation first, for sure. And ever since then with Mallrats, it's been a love affair. I admitted this to him that for the longest time, I was one of those snobby, dumb kids that I would never I just would not watch Clerks because it was in black and white. So. Yeah. Now I'm a freaking cinephile, and I will like anytime I can go watch Casablanca like at the New Beverly or a small little theater, I will go and eat it up, But at the time, I was a dumb kid who was like not cultured enough in movies, So, but now my favorites of his are Clerks and Clerks 2. Those are my favorites, and I guess I can do an exclusive here. I recently had the opportunity of being part of Clerks 3. So,
oh,
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, I did.
Was that?
It was insane because like the movie, it was one of those things that was done like in post-production because like last year I was already doing all these toys for him. So I wanted to like be in any kind of way I wanted to be part of the art department in any kind of way for Clerks 3 while it was shooting. Sadly, it didn't happen. So I was like, all right, well, I tried, I contacted people, but it was one of those things where like, I think the movie was already in motion, so I didn't catch it at the right time. But then now because of doing this toy and doing some other toys for him, which I will have to grab. Sorry, I forgot to grab those. My Mallrats.
Yeah, those are great, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I'm super happy with those. Sculpted by the Beast Brothers. I have to say that because like I felt so bad on the podcast with Kevin. We kept talking about these things and I just didn't properly give credit to some of the artists. I mean, it's just something that I'm like, I always want to make sure that I credit people that I collaborated with. So anyways, what was it? Where was it? Okay. So yeah. So at the beginning of this year, I was already kind of like in more contact with Kevin because we were planning on the release for this and that. And I just kind of sort of like out of the whim, like sent him my updated versions of characters and things that from his universe. Just I did it on my own just because I'm a fan, and I was just like, oh, maybe we can make like a t-shirt or a pin or something like that. And one of the things that I did is I sent him an updated version of the Vulgar which is the clown that shows up in front of all of his movies. It's called it's basically the USQ logo, which they used for like 10 years. So then he's like, oh, and mind you, my pitch was like, hey, a t-shirt or a pin or something. So I sent him that, and then I sent him also the teaser trailer to the short film I'm working on, which I think I talked about back then because
you did. I have it in my notes. I saw like a little preview.
yeah. It will be done this year. Thank God. So he kind of sort of he, him being the genius that he is, he's like, hey man, you want to take this logo and like you want to do a 3D version of it and we'll put it in front of the movie. And like my mind, like this is like in January. So this is like last month. And like, my brain, like it took me like a whole day for it to like wrap around my head. And I was just like, I can't say no to this. I got to make this happen. So the same company, Matt CG, who I'm working with on my short, Lucky Brave Sunshine, I kind of sort of reached out to them and I kind of storyboarded and I did like a quick animatic. I'm like, okay, we got 7 seconds. I think this is what we could do. Like, and we had to like, I think turn her around in less than a week. Because literally he was like, yeah, he's like, we're locking the picture like next week, like we need it like like now. And so I just rose to the occasion, and thankfully with my team in Ecuador and my co-director Ichi Aguilar, we got it done and delivered. So that was pretty cool. The fact that sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, well, I mean, I love how you had that network there to just be able to tap with such a quick turnaround, versus having to like justify who you are and saying, no, I really do have this gig.
It's like, hey, guy, I want to be in your movie. Yeah, no, like, and it wasn't even my intention. So then in a weird way, like this wish fulfillment, because those are my favorite movies of his his series. For me, like I'm all about things in threes. I love trilogies. So for me, I was like, oh, it would be so cool. Like if I would be part of the third movie in any way. And I mean, Jesus, what better way than like, not just to have my artwork featured, but then also to be like do the production, like logo that, So yeah.
Can we just pull back for a second? Cause I want to make sure I get the story right. So you reached out to him to be in Clerks 3 before you ever knew him?
I had no, like I wasn't reaching to him personally. I was reaching out like to his assistants, but like that, I don't know if like that those messages like necessarily got to him because I think they were like already so busy. Like, I mean, and I don't fault anybody. But because like I had like more direct contact with him towards the beginning of this year, because what was happening is I had sent him, he wanted to give me notes on artwork that I was doing. So instead of like
that you're doing for him, because I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, what are the breadcrumbs to you working with him and to doing all these toys?
Right. So the toys. Okay, let me see. Let me try to find a point because there's many little like points. Let's start with like the toy. So let's start back in 2017. 2017, it was a year of like transitioning. I had just ended working at Cartoon Network and I went over to a new job. But because of that, because I was unemployed for a while, I started seeking out like freelance and things to do. One of those freelance gigs was I got to do something for Loot Crate, and the art director at the time, I'm going to butcher his last name, Tom Kursanski. I don't believe he's there anymore, but he basically said, hey, I think you would be a good fit. We're doing, because they were doing collaborations with Kevin at the time. And they were like, it would be cool if you did a pattern of like the evolution of Jay and Silent Bob. And, and we'll do like boxers and socks out of it. So I immediately like leapt with joy because like it was characters that I hadn't really, I hadn't visited since like high school, because Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was like my favorite movie in high school. So at the time, because I was unemployed and I couldn't like go, I did have some of his movies, but because I couldn't like really afford to like, I had to like save all my pennies at the time just to kind of sort of like, pay the bills and all that stuff. So I went to the free library in Burbank, and surprisingly enough, they had all his movies and they have everything there.
Yes.
So I got Dogma. So it was a great way to just kind of sort of revisit this hero of mine and go through his entire movie catalog. Chasing Amy is one of those two that I think I kind of bypassed because I don't think I was emotionally mature enough to appreciate it, and that movie is so great. So anyways, so I did this project, and I kind of sort of already did all this research, and I had like this entire library in drawings of Kevin himself. So from that little Silent Bob drawing, the little Silent Bob drawings that I did, then later I would do, well, I had already done the Guru, and then I started in conversations of doing the toy, and then I kind of pitched it. I'm like, we should make this as a series. And then they kind of said like, who else would you want to do as? So immediately I was like, Kevin. And I took that drawing that I did from the boxer thing, and I essentially like basically turned it like into this. He was definitely like Guillermo, as you can see with Guillermo, like his arms morph into the things. With Kevin, because I know his stuff is like more, because Guillermo's like I feel like his movies are like more like a fantasy, and with Kevin, I was like, because he's more set on realism, I was like, oh, we gotta kind of have to like, I have to have him holding everything, because like everything that he does is like real world based, like, his, this is, okay. So I should say, this is not the final version. This is not like the only version of the toy. We're going to have 3 variants. This is the first one that came out. This is the readable edition, and readable because of edibles, it comes.
I'm so like naive when it comes to drugs. I'm like, oh wait, I just got that. It's always like when I'm walking by, I'm like, what? Why is there a skunk out here? And then it always takes me half a second. I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah. No, and it's hilarious because some people have genuinely asked me, it's like, oh, is it edible? I'm like,
that's what I thought for sure. I was like licorice or something.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about doing a photo like biting it, but it's actually because it's a translucent material, because I think it's probably like a translucent vinyl, and then they probably put like a red dye. It's actually a little softer than which is kind of cool. I think it kind of adds to the gumminess, like the readable aspect of it. So going back to the arm, so I did one for his podcast. This is the bong saber from Blunt Man. There's never been, I think, a Kevin Smith podcast that I listened to where he doesn't mention Clerks. So I knew I had to have like the Clerks script that even says Clerks on there.
Oh, nice.
He's holding a little Moobies there, because now that's the new franchise. This one, I kind of like, you kind of have to put it in his like finger, but he's got basically holding a J blunt. And it's actually got Jay's face like,
oh,
there.
Wow.
So some people are calling it a sperm. Hey, if you want it to be a sperm, that's fine.
Hey, man, I've scolded ghosts that people called sperm. I'm like, do you want to buy it? I don't care.
Exactly. Thank you for buying my toy. I appreciate it. And then here's like a megaphone, like for director, and you can't really see it, but it's got like swear words on there, like cussing, like comic book, So yeah, this is the one that it came out on Valentine's Day. Which, I thought was kind of perfect timing. The second one will be, I guess I can't really officially say the dates, but I'll just give you a big hint. The second one is called the Dope variant, and it's flocked and it's green. And flocked. Yeah. Flocked is like it's like that fussy. I should probably explain to people that probably don't know. Flocked is kind of like, what are those like little animal toys that you can buy? The calico, like
the critter, calico critters or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So like they have like that soft little fur. So it's kind of going to be that, but all green. And I'll just like wink. It'll come out on a day where marijuana is very often celebrated during the year.
I see. I know that.
Yeah. So, so technically I'm not saying the date, but it will come out on that day or around then. And then the third one is the one that I think a lot of people are after, is which I consider this is technically, there's only one edition of the Guillermo one, and this is what I consider like the regular edition, because this was the only edition that we ever did. Someday, I don't know, and this is not in the works at all. This is just my own wish. If there's ever a variant of this one, I want there to be a flocked crimson version of this. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah. Yes. So anyways, so the classic, the regular edition of this is going to be him. It's going to be painted all black and white, and it's being called the Clerks edition. So that's that. I actually don't have the date, but I know that we're planning on timing it around the time that Clerks 3 comes out, and there's no definite a date for Clerks 3 right now, like premiere date, but I know it's going to come out in the fall. So sometime in the fall. So this one is available right now. The Readable edition is available to buy. The Dope edition will be available in a month or two. And then the other one will be in the fall. But I forget what I was like. Oh, I was going to also point out too, he's got I can't really see it there, but he's got the Buddy Christ heart. And it's also symbolic because he had a heart attack 4 years ago. Yeah. So I was like, that. I have to, and Kevin to me, it also symbolizes just somebody with like a really big heart. And just getting to know him like on a more like one-on-one level, they say, you know, that phrase, don't meet your heroes. I say, fuck that. Like, cause the heroes that I've met, like Guillermo and Kevin, live up to the amazing people that they are.
Pick a better heroes.
Yeah. And then on the back, he's wearing the blunt man, and he's got like the little, I probably can't see it, but there's a little pin that Silent Bob wears in all his movies. It's like a little neutral mouth. You know, it's considered now the Silent Bob pin. So I put that little logo in the back, but cool. Yeah, this one was fun because like, you know, you run into that thing as an artist where like, I wanted to like continue like the thing. I'm like, no, I should morph his arms into the thing. But then I was like, I think every director should dictate like what it is. And, you know, so for this one, it still has like that symmetry that I have with Guillermo, you know, but in a different kind of way. So
yeah, I think that's important for you to kind of make them all unique, like within the same toy line, but have their own twist on it. Kind of like the Funko Pops, like they're in the same world, but they're all kind of different.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I'm pretty proud of this series. Right now, there's no plans to continue the series with Unruly, but I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but I am working. You know, well, I say when there's obstacles, make your own opportunities. So I'm actually going to be doing my third guru in my series right now, just kind of like on my own, and hopefully maybe down the line do it through Unruly or maybe through another company, and then I can officially round out my trilogy. So
I think artists now have to create their own paths, just because, I mean, you know, with social media, everybody's an artist now. So the competition is out there.
Absolutely. And honestly, like if you don't I feel like there's no excuse today, you know, like you have all the tools available to you. You kind of sort of have to like, you know, make it happen. So no excuses to be lazy.
No, exactly. Well, Chogrin, I want to transition a little bit into, you know, if you have the time, because I think we've been recording for like 36 minutes now.
Sorry.
Are you good on time now? Or okay.
Cool. Oh yeah. I can keep going.
I love how you're like, I'm still in my PJ shirt. We're good.
No, we're good. And before you transition, because I want to make that point clear. So basically that started my journey with Kevin. And then when I pitched a bunch more artwork beyond because Kevin had to approve this. So then when I think Kevin connected the dots that I was doing the Guru and the Mallrat toys, because the Mallrat toys, again, going back to the art shows, I did the prototypes. I teamed up with the Beast Brothers because I basically sent them my 2D design. I was like, hey, you guys game to collaborate with me and make these happen for this. Like, it was like the 25th anniversary of Mallrats, which that made me feel old too. And Kevin, Kevin like just saw him at the show, and then I kind of used that jumping point to say like, hey, who do we have to talk to like kind of just like make these like official, and we kind of got, then that's when I kind of got more contacts, and then through those contacts I kept pitching things to Kevin, and then it got to the point where I kept sending things, and Kevin was sending notes through another person, and it was, I think Kevin was just like, you know what, just like put me in touch with him, and like it's going to be faster. So ever since then, it's just kind of like, you know, I don't want to say like, but it's gotten to the point where like, hey, you should check out this show, or you should check this thing out, you know, like, and he's just one of the raddest human beings. I remember like out of the blue, he started doing this series called, what's it called? It's a podcast, Film School Fridays. And I knew he was going to be doing movies that are playing right now. So he did like Licorice Pizza. He did, and then I just kind of just cause, you know, I already had that, I was talking to him. I said like, hey, if you do Nightmare Alley, I said, I'm your guy. You know, because like I said, Guillermo's my other boy, you know? So, and that's how that happened. He's like, yeah, come on over. And I was like, oh shit.
Wow.
So yeah. And then that's kind of like how, you know, and then, you know, the artwork for the movie, and yeah, it's been a whirlwind. I'm still kind of wrapping my head around it, but yeah, Kevin Smith is one cool dude. That's all I will say. So,
he seems really nice, and he seems like a really caring father. I've seen him talk about his daughter a lot.
Okay, I'm going to share something that I told my mom that made me feel like it was like so heartwarming. When I left his house with the podcast, from doing the podcast, not only did he give me a big hug, he waited by the door till I got in my car and I left okay. And I left okay. Like a parent. Like, it melted my heart. So because the area where I parked, it's you know, I don't want to say where it is, but like it's an area where you could kind of get into, like, I could see like car accidents happening very easily. Yeah. So
the roads can get narrow.
Yes. Yeah. So, but I just thought that was so heartwarming. He's such a caring person. So yeah,
that's so funny, especially for people that just kind of like see some of his like older kind of toilet humor and like don't realize like the person behind him. Like he is so caring. Like I've seen him talk live, I think when Geely was coming out, and he's honest. Like he tells real stories. I think he told a story about how he was supposed to do a documentary for Prince, and he went into, have you ever heard of the story?
Yes. I've seen that. And you know, and it's so funny, hearing the younger version of himself and hearing himself now. He's like so much more, like you could tell like he's learned from like what to do, what not to do. And sometimes I also kind of like try to learn from those experiences. I feel Kevin Smith in summary is best. All the kind of naughty kind of like humor is on the surface level, and underneath is this giant heart, you know? So I think that's Kevin Smith like in a nutshell. So,
and also Red State and Tusk, like there are movies that people haven't explored of his. They don't realize.
You know, even if you hate like Tusk, I think I applaud him for it, because the fact that he is doing something different. They're not totally. He's a director that's just not like copying and pasting. He's doing his own thing, and I say we need more Tusks in the world. So
I agree. So transitioning now.
Yes.
I wanted to get your take just on like the whole art world in general, because you did start off with like a lot of other people like doing the gallery shows. And I feel like so many people, like take, for example, 100% Soft, you know, really succeeding in that toy world. Like I really get upset when I see other people trying to claim the dumpster fire. And I'm like, no, that is 100% Soft's toy. You cannot recreate that. I think some Republican Party tried to like use it against it. He's like, excuse me.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah. That was years ago.
Yeah, Truck has been in a couple of my art shows, and just seeing him do all of that stuff, like every once in a while, like, you know, we'll kind of just pat each other in the back, like, man, that's really cool that toy that you did. And then, like, he'll say like, dude, that toy that you did is really, really awesome. And his recent collaboration with I forget the artist's name, but Everything's Fine dog on top of the dumpster fire.
Yes, I actually have the plush from that guy.
Yeah,
on my fridge.
And I feel bad. I'm sorry. I don't know the name of the guy.
I'll flash his name on the screen because I met him in person and I feel bad I don't know. Because I actually met him. I was like, "You're the real guy?" And he's like, "Yes, I'm the real guy." Because it's just his art that kind of, it's almost a meme now more than a comic. Is so part of just like the zeitgeist. It's our culture now.
And on that note, since we're on this topic, I want to promote a documentary that I feel it's very essential watching for any artist, especially regarding copyright and protecting your character. And especially if you have an original content, it's, that Pepe the Frog.
Yes, I've seen this documentary. Yes.
Yeah. It's called Feels Good, Man. And I think the artist's name is Matt Fury, or I'm sorry, I'm butchering it. Maybe you could flash that too. But it's definitely worth watching, and it was definitely an eye opener. Like I think it talked about NFTs and all that stuff before NFTs kind of became a thing.
Oh, I probably didn't even put that together back then because it was like, okay, what is that?
Remember, there's a part in the documentary where a guy's driving a Lamborghini and he's like, I've got like the most expensive like Pepe the Frog like NFT, and like I was like, I'm like, what is that? Like that's insane. So, anyways, for some reason the Everything's Fine dog reminded me of the Pepe the Frog. I was like, I just love that documentary. It's very eye opening. So.
Oh yeah, totally. And I feel bad for him. He came out with this like whole clothing line.
Yeah.
And then investing all this money and then your art gets taken away from you. Like Jimmy and I talked about that afterwards. Like, what if our character, like Dr. Taquito, was like turned into something else? Like it's kind of terrifying because you can't reclaim it. But what I wanted to get into is, it almost feels like the gallery shows, like you were saying, you were doing so many and you got burnt out. It seems like people are still doing gallery shows, but they aren't the same as they used to be. It's kind of like all of our walls are covered in prints and we ran out of space. So what now? So how do you think that's transitioning away or what's next?
Well, I kind of said, I told a lot of friends like this, like 5 years ago, there's going to be a point, especially with pop culture galleries, it's going to be like a snake eating its own tail. It's going to just like, and now we're going to do like a remix of like that thing, so now gallery shows I feel are kind of stuck in this rut of like, just like, like let's remix it, it's kind of sort of like what I guess reboots are right now in Hollywood.
Yes, good example.
So I've been thinking about that too, because my feeling about doing art shows has been two things. I'm either going to do something because I want to say something, like for example, for the Guillermo show, I knew that I wanted to. Each art show should be an opportunity for an artist to elevate themselves, to challenge themselves to do something new. And that's why I would always surround myself with artists that were like 10 times better than me, because I was like, I gotta do better. I gotta like elevate myself, like, to like, and be more kick-ass, or like, work on my craftsmanship and make things look nicer, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the reasons to do an art show for me. The second reason is just because I love something. For example, like that the new Ghostbusters movie came out last year. Rest in peace, Ivan Reitman. So I knew that I had to come out of the woodwork and work with a smaller gallery just to say that I did it, and it was an excuse for me to do a Ghostbusters art piece. But I think for the most part, I always like I have been thinking. Because that's funny you say that, because I've seen this like stagnation and stuff like that. I am working on a really cool art show idea where it would force everybody to do like something new and something exciting with our artwork. So I think it's just about, and it's not NFTs.
I know there's so many people who are like all for it, and then so many people who are against it.
Yeah.
I'm learning like the whole like how it affects the environment and stuff with like the servers. Anyways,
that's why I've been very hesitant about getting into it, because I want to make sure I just don't jump into it, because everybody and their grandmother is doing it. I want to make sure that like if I do it with the right company or the right person. I still think it's very weird, like, like something that lives and exists on a server, and then someday, like, it won't exist. I don't know. An asteroid will hit it, and it won't exist anymore. I don't know. So it's weird, but and at the same time, it's kind of exciting because it's like, oh, it's your way for your artwork to live forever, like on the web, So
Yeah.
so yeah, I won't, trust me, I won't get into it too much because honestly, I don't know much about it either. But I know that it's a very complicated thing because I know just getting into it, like you have to have like these accounts and you have to have like a password, like, and all these different areas. And like somebody tried to explain it to me recently. I was just like, I just want to draw, like, yeah, I get anyways. But yeah, no, the thing for me, I think it's about creating not just like new things with artwork. It's also about creating cool ideas and themes that haven't been explored yet. Because I feel a lot of like what a lot of these and I'm not going to mention gallery names, but I think what a lot of these galleries are missing is cool ideas to like explore, cool, because I think they've got to a point where like they need to start, invite, not necessarily me, but like invite more outside curators to come in and bring in like their group of friends or artists that are doing a certain thing and do it at the gallery. I mean, I think that's how you kind of keep things fresh and liven things up, is just bring in just different, it's kind of like in movies, like you invite different director like Matt Reeves to do the new Batman, that's how you kind of keep pumping like new blood into, or new fresh ideas into stuff. But right now I totally agree with you. It's like in this like cycle of like, like, oh, it's just the same thing, over and over again. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird, especially if you're a digital artist. It's just like, for me, I knew, for example, like I knew that I just like was tired of doing digital prints, and I knew I wanted to give my artwork more value. And I think I talked about this like in the last podcast, or maybe not, but I knew that because I was working digitally, I decided to then export all my stuff and then start doing it as screen prints. So I was still working digitally, but when I would output my artwork, I was giving my buyers and my collectors like something unique, and that once it was gone, that was it. That's why I don't do digital prints very often, and if I do, it's a very small run. I usually just do screen prints, wood prints, and then like stuff like this. Especially not necessarily vinyl, because like when you're doing stuff like this and you're doing a one-off, it's usually in resin. But yeah, I mean those are kind of have been like my output in artwork, and now soon will be my short film, which is literally kind of taking everything that I've learned from art galleries, because a lot of the artists that I've collaborated with in art galleries I've kind of tapped into, like doing concept art and stuff like that. So it's kind of sort of mixing all those elements and my experience of working in the animation industry, and like just putting it like on the screen. So for me, that's the ultimate, like it's just like, it's animation, it's illustration, it's sound, everything. So
Man, that is the same thing that like I feel with like what we do through Cuddles and Rage, is that you can't just be one note. Like, Jimmy and I, like he does music, I do really basic animation or sculpture and digital. Like you kind of have to diversify. And so like leading into kind of our final question, I wanted you to talk about Stranger Things and your collaboration with Netflix, because going from gallery shows and, we were talking about like the space and making it unique, I think looking at places like Mondo and what you're doing with Netflix, it really comes down to transitioning your art into merch. Like I will always buy a t-shirt from an artist that I think is cool as hell. Like I will wear it because I have more space in my closet than I do my walls.
Absolutely. I'm a t-shirt hoarder. And like anytime like a company like Ruck and Fountain or I'm a sucker for anything that has like Japanese text on it. So anytime it's like an Insta. I used to have a period where it was like an addiction. Like every month I was buying like a new shirt. Now I've kind of like all right. especially after being locked up for 2 years. Like I quickly realized I'm like, oh God, like I don't have space for anything.
Right. And we wear the same thing like every week. You're not really rotating as much as you think.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, no. And actually that's one thing that's funny that you say that, because like when I design something, I usually design it keeping a couple of things in mind. Can I turn it into a toy? Can I turn it into a t-shirt? And can I turn it into a pin? Like, so I try not to limit myself, because like, when you're drawing, you want to like, you want to like have fun and flow. But as a designer too, I'm like keeping kind of those things in check. Like, is this going to be a problem when I turn it into a pin? Like, and I think it's also like working digitally, you kind of like, you keep a lot of those like things in mind. Obviously when working on other stuff, like it's sometimes out of your control, like in animation, but sorry, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah,
no,
I think.
With the Netflix thing, like I'd love to know before we end our conversation, like how that came about.
Yeah. That's what, okay. Thank you. That's actually where I was trying to segue, and I kind of just lost my train of thought. So thank you for reminding me. So the Stranger Things thing came about because I had been invited to be part of this Printed in Blood. It's this book company that does like pop culture stuff. They were going to do this Guillermo book. And for some reason, I don't know if it's still happening. It's something that was like almost 5 years ago. But I was invited to basically include my artwork that I had already done for Guillermo. So because I was in contact with them, then their next project came up, and I think they got like the rights to do Stranger Things. And because of that, I was automatically invited in the artist group. And I had suggested when I was in the Guillermo book, my curator instinct already kicked in, and because I had already done so many Guillermo art shows, I was like, you should invite this artist and this artist. I don't know if they did or not, but a lot of my friends ended up on the Stranger Things book too. So I'm happy to see that maybe they took some of my suggestions. Anyways, I was invited to the Stranger Things book, and I did this design of 11. I always liked that line in the first season where she says, "I am the monster." Mm-hmm. And I thought it would be kind of super awesome and funny for like to be her with a Demogorgon head, but then with an ego in the middle, and that imagery in my head of that design just kind of like, and it didn't come like from one get-go. It was from exploring. Like I started drawing 11, and I started drawing all the characters. I originally had drawn 11 holding the waffle with a Demogorgon behind her, and then like from that exploration of like looking at my own sketch of like the Demogorgon right behind her, I just kind of sort of like took my thumb and I covered 11's face, and I was just like, that kind of looks cool with a Demogorgon head. Like,
man, that was like your cinematic moment, your aha moment of like a bug crawling against your screen. You're like, whoa, I never saw it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, because a lot of people think like, oh, it automatically pops in your head, right? No, like, it's always like sometimes like by accident. Because like even when I did this thing, like basically I had drawn just the body like this. And then I looked at the little, it was like an inspiration because a friend of mine at the time, he's like, you should make him like a Buddha or like a guru. And then because I'm a big fan, my favorite movie of Guillermo's is Chronos. It's his first movie.
Yes.
So the little bug with the 6 arms. So I was like, that's where that came from, and Guillermo's love for insects. So anyways, so now I'm applying that to everything. Because it still applies to like the deity, like, that you see.
Yeah.
But so I did that illustration for that Stranger Things book. It got printed, you could buy it at Barnes and Noble, Amazon, whatever. And then somebody from Netflix reached out, and they said like, we are looking at some of the illustrations from the book, and we are interested in, selecting yours as to make merch. So me being, the businessman inside of me, I immediately took the opportunity to email. Like I immediately did a sketch of the design, but like kind of sort of like with just standing with a base, I said, how about a toy? Because and then I included like, and I also did this toy,
Yeah.
so then like they kind of just said like, oh, that's an interesting idea.
That's
And then like, I think,
nice.
yeah, that's nice. That's nice. It's like, we're only going to use it for a t-shirt. Thank you very much. So, so then like, I think 2 weeks later, somebody from from like because the thing is like, I think at the time it was one of those Netflix didn't have their own shop. They didn't have their own like merch.
Weird.
Yeah, because I think they were like basically licensing it to everybody, like I think McFarlane Toys did the original run of toys. Anyways, so they kind of wanted to kind of sort of like make more of their own home operation. So somebody, I think, had just started like their toy division, and I think because of that email I sent, they were like, hey, we would be interested in, pursuing this as a toy. And then from then I just kind of like, did like, a turnaround, and I worked with a sculptor that, has sculpted some of my toys, Taylor Brown. And yeah, I just kind of delivered it to them, and we signed a deal. And yeah, it's so cool to be able to be part of something that not only like, because they could have taken it and done whatever they wanted with it, but it was so cool that they kept it like as an artist series, like an artist signature. Like when the toy comes out, it's going to have my name on it. It's going to have my bio. And it's like, I mean, that's one of the things I really appreciate so much. Like from Unruly Industries, with these guys is like, and all the toys that I've been doing, honestly, it just has my name all over the packaging, like designed by Chogrin, all that stuff. So that to me is like, I'm super thankful for that. But I think it's also like just so great that these bigger companies are offering those opportunities, So
it's so important because
yeah.
I have an artist group that I meet with every month. I'm actually meeting with them tonight. And,
Awesome.
We're always talking about how, the artist's name should be on the packaging, period. Like, I don't care what it is, if it's like a Target gift card, like you should note the artist. But really, when it comes to like the yummy foods and, Heidi Kenny's name was on there, but then something happening with the licensing and they took their name off. I'm like, I don't care. Like, you're still using her designs.
That's why it's even important for me that the sculptor gets credited. Like even even if it's like in the packaging, somewhere their name needs to be on it, because like, I mean, yeah, it's my design, but like, it's a collaboration of somebody bringing my design to life. So, yeah.
Why not give them more work? Why not like feed a fan of that artist?
Exactly. Absolutely. So yeah. And I've gotten to the point in my career where like, I mean, yeah, a lot of stuff is born here, and I sketch it out. And then it's like, I feel like that's like 50% of it. Like, and then another 25% is my excitement and like my, like, let's do it. And then the other like, percent is like, like the people that help me out and make it a reality and make it happen. Because like, that's not, I mean, that the making my short film like has been like, it's been a village.
I mean, even hearing you talk about it, in 2018.
Yeah. It's absolutely like, because I work in animation, and I know that animation is very much a group effort, and like, kind of like a hot potato. Like I'm like, all right, you're next, like I'm passing it on to you. So, but having the experience of just being the person, being like the for lack of better words, like the George Lucas, like the creator of it all, the building out the universe, and like giving all these amazing artists like my stuff, and then them taking it and making it look like 100 times better, like it's just like so eye-opening and so awe-inspiring, and it makes you want to become a better person, a better leader, a better artist. And I am just like so humbled, and it's just been, there were, I'm not going to say it was like all roses and stuff, because any production, any project that you work on is going to break your heart in some, aspect. But just the experience itself, like I I'm addicted to it. Just kind of like how I'm with toys. Like now we're close to being done with my first short. Now I just can't wait to start the next one and the next one and the next one. Cause I told my mom jokingly, I said, I must be a masochist because but I feel like I think any good art project, anything like, there is a point like of just kind of like being like, you get to a point where you're exhausted or you're just kind of like, oh God, like, am I going to be able to go on? But I think that's what makes it like beautiful too. And what makes it such an experience, it's like that because you're learning. Honestly, I think if you don't go through those things, I think something's wrong. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm not saying you have to have a terrible time or be in pain, but I'm just saying like, I think sometimes maybe some productions will be better than others. Like, like, this one was so easy because it was already done and they kind of took it and made it into a toy. But this one was kind of a little bit more kind of like, trying to figure out what each hand was going to hold, like, so I must have done like five different versions, until like, I was happy with it and the team was happy with it. There was a point where you reach those burning out points where you're just kind of like, I don't even know if it looks good anymore,
Oh gosh.
So,
yeah. So that's so good to hear from like the best of artists so that they can still feel that way. Like, like I have a friend whose work is like beautiful and she's like, I just trashed it. I'm like, I cannot imagine anything you create, you trashing. Like that breaks my heart. But it's so true that everybody goes through that. Like, is this good anymore?
No. And it's funny. Like, like I think every artist, I think you look at your work from 5 years ago and you're like, ew. but there are some things that I look at like turning points and I was just like, oh, I see what younger version of myself was doing. That's cool.
Exactly. So, yeah.
You have to have both. You have to love yourself and also be like, I could do this better.
Right. You should always be growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's a really good note to end on, Chogrin. Is there anything else you want to add before we say goodbye?
I would go grab my mall rats, but maybe we can put a little picture of them.
Yeah, I'll put the picture up on there because it really is like beautiful and amazing. Like that's gonna sell out.
I'm hoping from that line. I have plans. Hopefully they do well, and I want to do a whole animal series with Kevin, Jay, and Silent Bob. So we'll see.
It sounds like with your relationship so far, you should be up for it. So knock on wood.
Oh, well, that's one thing I love about Kevin. He loves making stuff. So that's a good problem for me. So
you're like, I'm here.
I'm here. Yeah, exactly. So, but thank you so much, Liz. And hopefully we'll do a trilogy, and by part 3, I will be running my own show at Netflix. So
yes. And then I'll be writing to you and be like, hey, remember me?
Yeah. Oh no. Come on. You'll probably have your own show by then too. So
man, both that'll be the wonderful ending that we both get our own shows and then talk about it in the trilogy.
I like the second installment. We're building to the trilogy.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much to Chogrin for being on the show. Check out the story notes for where you can follow Chogrin on social media. He's pretty much at Chogrin everywhere, but to make it easy for you, I will spell it out in the show notes. And also, I'll start putting it on the screen. I'm like, oh, now that I'm doing video, I can do that. I can actually have a visual aid, which I know for me personally, it'll always help. So for today's movie tie-in, I am going with a documentary. You're like, oh my gosh, always documentaries. I can't help it. I love documentaries. And they're always the first thing that comes to mind, especially when you're interviewing people. The documentary is Overnight. It is, okay, I have my letterboxd here again, just to make sure I get the title right. It's a documentary that I actually watched when I believe when I was in grad school. So it's been around for a long time. It came out in 2003. So yeah, I would have been in grad school. And it's about the guy who created Boondock Saints. And it walks you through him like selling the film and then making the film. And it ties in really well with this Chogrin interview because it's about the connections that you make and making your dreams come true. But with this documentary, it's also about like, don't be a dick. Like, don't be a jerk. The guy who created Boondock Saints like kind of got like a really big head and like puffed his chest. And it's actually documented here. And he went on to do Boondock Saints 2. I believe there's a sequel, and I think there's another one coming out, a 3. If I'm correct, I will flash it on the screen and be like, yes, you're right, Liz. Don't question yourself all the time. But this documentary, I mean, even if you love film, I'm surprised you haven't seen it, so what are you doing? But also, if you aren't really a cinephile and you just want like a really good story, then watch Overnight. Don't get confused with Overnighters, which is also a documentary, a great one to watch. But that's a totally different topic and it has its own twists and turns. So if you've seen Overnight, then go check out Overnighters. Not related really to the conversation with Chogrin, but still a good watch. So guys, until next time, I hope you are still creating, staying lively, and staying cool. Oh, I fit it in without feeling like a total nerd. What? And then it just went downhill. All right, until next time. Bye.